What's up, guys? So if you're watching this, then obviously you found the new channel. So again, on this channel, I'm going to be a little more free to say what I want and do what I want and things like that. So for our last concealment build, the mirror, I'll be showing you some tips and tricks on customizing your phone to fit your firearms. Again, you can store anything that you would like inside of any concealment build that I do, and I've built a lot. But I choose to store firearms in mine. Or if you want to store money or anything else that you want to hide, or even a banana, whatever, I don't care. Really, everything applies the same as far as measuring this out to actually fit your concealment furniture and fastening this material to your build. So let's go ahead and get started. And don't forget to subscribe, guys. This is a new channel, so we need to grow. And the only way that we can do that, and the only way that we can keep bringing you creative outdoor content, is to know that you dig the channel. So if you do, just let us know about it by hitting the subscribe button. All right, so depending on how you purchase your foam, I actually choose to purchase mine in 2x8 sheets because I use a lot of it. For this build, you may have purchased a kit that has the exact size for this, but I'm going to say that you're starting with a big piece of foam. So the first thing that we need to do is get our interior measurements. So depending on what you're planning on putting in your concealment build, let's say for this one, I'm just putting pistols in there. Foam will actually hold those in place, no problem. But let's say for my next build, hint, hint, we'll be needing something that will support maybe a shotgun or an AR. Well, I would still use the foam. It looks nice, plus it's great storage for your mags, knives, anything else that you would like. But I would also add in magnets. I'll link some of these in the description. These things are awesome. And for this build, if you did not want to use the foam, you could just use the magnets. But again, I like the way that the foam looks and that it holds extra mags. I just wanted to throw this in there just as an FYI on what you do with heavier firearms. So to start off with, I'm just going to get a rough measurement of the inside that I'm working with. First off, I'm going to go in between my springs on this one. It's pushing it at 15 inches. I'm going to say 14 inches, and that'll give us a little extra room there. I'm going to go ahead and go to the edge of the lock because there'll actually be a block of foam removed here for the actual locking mechanism itself. So we're at 14. And you also have to consider your hinges here, which we'll cut out a little place for those. Let's just do a 14 by 14. And unless you're wanting extra room, you could go a little bit larger, but really it would only give you the extra room that would be in between the two hinges. So no big deal there. So now that we know that a rough end is a 14 by 14 square, I'm going to go ahead and cut that. And as soon as I get that cut, we'll measure for our locking mechanism and notch that out. What I like to use is a 4-foot T-square, typically used for sheetrock or sheet goods, and just one of these super cheap knives. The reason why I like to use these is because this stuff's pretty thick and a lot of your knives will not extend out this long. And if you do not have a big T-square, really any straight edge will work. I have one, so might as well use it. So this is where I'll stop. And what I'm doing is just cutting through a couple of layers at a time. Now I like to go backwards here because it doesn't go all the way down where your square is at. Okay, so I'm at 14 on that side, and then just go 14 down here, and I'll make my second cut. All right, now if I'm still hanging on like in a corner or something, you can just slide your knife down, kind of find where that's at, and pop that loose. So there we have it, 14 by 14. Now let's head back over to the mirror. Okay, so back at the mirror, this is actually how it's going to go in, something like this. What I'm concerned with is cutting out a notch for this box. So I'm actually going to measure from this side, and that's all that I'm going to do. Since I know I want it kind of lined up with the edge of this, I'll line it up with the edge of my box. Then I'll just make sure that it's centered from the top and the bottom. But this build, it looks like about 1 3/4 inches. Once we have that, I'm just going to make sure we're straight going down the side of our board, straight going over. Yes, you can measure all of this out, but it's a lot quicker just to do this. So I'm just going to mark my foam. That's all I'm using is a colored Sharpie here. It seems to show up just a little bit better right where I want my box. So I know that the edge of the box will be here. Then I know that the box itself, we want to leave a little extra room. We don't want it too tight or it'll pinch whenever it tries to close. We'll do 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. Just to make things easy. That'll be leaving maybe an 1/8 of an inch gap all the way around this thing. But again, you'll never see that because once it opens, that's all that you're going to be seeing is the foam. So let's go ahead and get that marked out and cut out. So for this, I'm just going to use a little speed square here. We have our 2 marks here. I'm just double checking because this is kind of a fat Sharpie. We'll make a mark here. We'll do the same thing on this side from our new mark there. 3 1/4, the big fat Sharpie, and 3¼ and we'll just connect those two. Now let's cut this out same way we did our other one. And if you're in a hurry to cut these, which it's kind of satisfying to me, but you can actually heat the blades of these with a butane torch and it cuts, cuts like butter. But the fumes that it puts off, probably not good for you. I'm going to say it's definitely not good for you, but I have done it several times. We have our basic cut here. It's still attached in a couple of the inside edges, but now that we know our shape, we'll just use what we've already cut as our template. Okay, and this is where we're at. So back to the mirror. So at the mirror, what I want to do, even though this is going to be here, we're not sure exactly where it's going to end up. Yes, you can measure it and all that, but it's all that you have to do is slide it over your lock, make sure that it's going to fit there, then just close the unit. Fits perfectly. We know that it's going to work, that it's not sticking out too far. Lock itself is not going to hit it. So we know that this will work. Now it's time to customize it. So one thing to note before you start your customization is, remember, this is actually going to be here. So this will be the side that you're customizing. So just keep that in mind. That way you don't go through all the trouble of customizing this side and then it's in the back or your guns are upside down. And then whenever you go to actually put this in place, you will have an adhesive on the back of this and you can kind of stick it in there. But we'll get to there in a minute. So a little bit about this kiazen foam and why I prefer it over some of the others. One thing, you can get different thicknesses. You can get 3/4 of an inch, you can get 1/2 of an inch, you can get 2 inches. This depends on the build and what you're wanting to customize. So let's say if I was using this for tools, and I was going to line my tool cabinet and then cut out places for chisels and things like that, then I may use a different size. But what is cool about this foam is actually multiple layers of 1/4 of an inch foam. So whenever you go to customize it, the part that you're pulling out roughly 1/4 of an inch at a time. Yes, they have that other foam that like has a little stuff that you pick apart and all that mess, but I've used it before and it's not good. It doesn't have the support that this does because every single part of the foam has those cuts in it. So whenever you go to pluck out whatever you're wanting to put in there, the rest of your foam's still all cut up. So this stuff's awesome. I've used it for years, and that's what we'll be using today. All right, so as you can see, this 14 by 14, even though we have this cutout here, will hold several different firearms. Now, the very first thing that you want to do before you handle any weapon for any reason, be it cleaning, be it cutting this stuff out, you know what it is, and that's going to be to double check to make sure that everything is clear, everything is empty. I worked in one of the busiest ERs in the state of Kentucky, and 99% of our gunshot wounds were from unloaded weapons. And if you have anyone else around, make sure to do a 4-eyed check. Never hurts. But like I was saying, this thing will fit several, but for me, this kind of looks busy. So whatever your style is, up to you. That's the awesome thing about customizing this, and it's actually the fun part. Me, I'm going to cut out 2 places for a couple of 1911s. So one of the things that you have to keep in mind whenever you customize this is how thick is it? We only have 1.5 inches inside of our concealment mirror, but I designed it to accommodate almost every pistol that's on the market. So this will work out perfectly. But what we have to take into consideration is the widest point of the firearm. So in the case of the Kimber here, it is about 1.25 inches. So at the widest point, we will probably be cutting all the way through this foam. And that's going to be where the grip is. But down the barrel, it's only about 1 inch. So we're going to have different depths whenever we go to cut this out. Now, if you're putting in more compact type of pistols, then almost everything is around the same depth. Or let's say, like in the case of the Ruger here, you actually have other things that stick out a little bit further. Like on this one, the whole lower assembly actually sticks out further than the slide. So you would have to take that into consideration. But for this video, I'm going to be customizing it for 2 of the 1911s. And again, the side that is going down, we are sticking out about 1/4 of an inch further than the rest of the pistol. So that will come into play shortly. But the very first thing that you're going to do is just lay it out. So for me, I'm actually going to have another one, up here. I wanted a nice clean look. I thought about, having them facing different directions, but I think I'm just going to stick with both going the same direction. And then you want to make sure everything is square. That way that your presentation is is nice there. Again, another thing to consider is we're going to have this empty space and this empty space. You can put an extra mag or whatever you wanted over there later. And if you got all of this cut out and you put it into your concealment furniture and you don't like it and you bought a sheet of it, then just make another one. But again, I'm going to go for the double look here and make sure that I'm going to have plenty of space, something like that. I think that'll look pretty clean. Now, I do not like to get too close to the bottom here. Since this is going to be actually hanging, I want plenty of support here on the bottom. So once you have your pistol and your mag kind of the way that you want it, I'll go ahead and set my mag off because I can just add that back in a minute. And Sharpie. I like to use the different colors. The black actually does show up on this gray, but sometimes you can get it lost in some of the dark spots. So I just use different colors. And then I'm going to push down and trace around the firearm, making sure to get every part of this in there. So I'm going to start here at the end. Make sure we get the sight. And then you can actually taper it in just a little bit. Important thing to remember about, this foam, it's like woodworking. You can always cut a little extra off, but it's a lot harder to put it back. So I like to start mine off with a nice tight profile, and then I can always expand it. This is going to give you the super clean look instead of the sloppy look. I've seen some pretty sloppy foam cutouts, but I'm making this video. Maybe we won't have to see as many sloppy foam cutouts. And my lovely wife is here. She's packing, so don't piss her off. So now that we have the pistol traced, I'm going to go ahead and trace this mag. And you can go ahead and lay out all of your firearms and get those traced if you want. That way, whenever you start cutting, you can focus on that. But I'm going to do this in a couple of different sections just because I only have one of the 1911s down here. So that's what I'm going to do. If you want to leave the foam in front of the trigger there, you can. And this will slide down and stick up. Personally, I usually don't. But that's just kind of my preference. Customizable foam. So do your thing. So now that we have those on there, I'm going to go ahead and start with the pistol and start removing some of my foam. Now for this part, I like to use one of these little knives. The reason why is because of how far they can extend. So to start with, you'll take the minimum depth, okay, because you don't want to cut it too deep. Even though the grip on this one is about 1.25 inches wide, you don't want to cut the entire thing out at 1.25 inches whenever the gun's actually in there. Since the slide is only 1 inch across, it's going to sit at an angle. So what I like to do is just take my knife and set it at the depth of the thinnest part. It's only going to be about 1 inch. So you can just kind of eyeball it there and set it, or since I measured it and I know that it's 1 inch, I'm going to set it to 1 inch to the tip of my blade. Now I'll go ahead and cut this entire thing out at 1 inch. And we know in a bit we'll have to come back and go a little bit deeper for our handles. Doesn't really matter where you start, but let's just get a basic outline. Now remember, everything that's in the middle is going to be removed. So instead of trying to make like really tight corners and stuff like that, you can go straight down. And I kind of like to use just the up and down cutting, kind of like a jigsaw. That way you get the full depth. This is what I was talking about, like instead of making super sharp turns, you kind of go in. This is like one of those super sharp turns there. That's why I made the slit here. And it's kind of like a bandsaw. I know woodworking, so that's what I refer to. And just an FYI, these little knives have locks on them. So just pull this down, and that will keep you at 1 inch the whole time. It'll keep you from accidentally, pushing it forward or anything like that. So you can go in an angle at first if you'd like, only going down about 1/8 of an inch or however, just to get your outline, and then go back for the deep cut, just mainly through that top layer. And since the blade is facing out like this, then let's say if I start in this corner to make a cut, you can go back and face the blade towards that corner. That way it actually cuts all the way and connects to your previous cut. So I'll continue on around. Let's just say I'm cutting through this first layer to start with, just something to follow. Once you've done this a few times, you can just go to town. And if at any point you have something that's just kind of in your way and you haven't met your depth yet, you can just stick your finger, push out on the sides here, and kind of pull back like this. and you can cut that off. We're going to have a lot of scrap here, so it's nice to have like a little bag or something to throw all this junk in. But that's out of the way. Now I can go ahead and get to my full depth that I'm wanting. Now that I have everything outlined at an inch, I'm going to go ahead and just score across. That way I can remove this in like sections. Now, if there's any part of the pistol that you would like to keep kind of raised up or material behind, then you may not want to go all the way down on that section yet. So you could work around that. Let's get this first layer off kind of thin, and then we'll take a look at that. So I'm going to try to just find the same layer and just work it off. So we're actually 2 layers deep at this point, which would be 1/2 of an inch. Again, we're cut 1 inch deep, but I'm only removing 2 layers for now. So that's our basic shape. Okay, we're going to check everything out here. And you can kind of tell by the first layer if you need to make any adjustments. I think it's looking pretty good. We may have to end up trimming a little bit of this, but we'll keep going down. And what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to go any deeper right here. I'm going to inset the rest of this slide a bit, see what it looks like with this kind of like a layer up. So I'm going to keep going down, but I'm going to leave the hammer here. I'm going to leave it as that layer just to see what it looks like. We can always just peel it out. In order to do that, I'm just going to make a little cut here, and then I'll just connect it there. So now let's go another layer or 2. 2's coming out, so that's what we'll do, which would be the full thickness of the cut, 1 inch. So just be careful whenever you're taking this out at this depth, because this is the 4th layer. Remember, they're 1/4 of an inch per layer, so that's only leaving us with 1/4 of an inch in the back. And we don't want to, really wouldn't hurt anything, but we don't want to bust through the back and remove that back layer if we weren't intending to. Some of these layers are hard to find, but you can usually tell because when you pull up on it, you'll see a bit of glue. That's just where they glued those 2 together. Now the back of this does not have to look pretty. It will not look pretty, most likely. Again, you can heat, like if you wanted it to be like nice and perfectly smooth whenever we get done, which I don't know why you would. But if you did, you could actually heat a piece of metal or something and it would actually melt that back together, kind of looking like this. But I usually don't worry about it because it's covered. Still have a little bit of cleanup to do, but we'll see what she's looking like. So what I was talking about, you can kind of tell when you're in between the layers, because you can see just a little bit of glue there. They glued the layers together. And speaking of, if you ever accidentally remove too much, like in one area, let's say that I pulled this out and I needed to put it back or whatever, you can actually glue this back in with some CA glue to repair that. But I'm kind of curious to see what it's going to look like here with a hammer. Okay, so now we're starting to sit in there nicely. And you see how this is flush here? That's because we took that down to the 1 inch. And it's still sticking up just a little bit here, and that is because we still have about 1/8 of an inch just for the grip. Let's go ahead and get that area cut out for the grip. You can actually take the back grip off, set it down and trace it, or you can just kind of measure in. I know that based on this, we're looking at 3/8 will cover us. Inset on that side and 1/4 of an inch, shifting up to 3/8. And then 4 1/4. So this part will most likely remove all the way to the back. I'm going to try not to go all the way through, but we're getting pretty close. Again, this is all going to be behind. Yeah, it's just going to come on out, which that's fine too. Now this will slide into there like that. I think it looks good. Let's say that you get all this cut out and get it mounted into your furniture. You don't like this little spot missing here. You want a little bit of protection there for your grip. Then you can actually take the piece that you cut out for that and you can cut it down even thinner or try to pull it apart super thin like this. And then once you get all of this glued into place, you would just go back in and glue that little thin strip all the way down to the bottom. Now with that pistol cut out, we would do the same thing for our mag. I'm going to set my depth. This won't have the extra contours to worry about or anything. I'm just going to trace around my mag with my knife. go down a little bit deeper with the mag if you'd like, but I think it's going to sit in there pretty good. But that is about it. Yeah, I'll go down just a bit deeper with the mag. And once I get my top cut, I'll be ready to glue this into place. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be back in a minute. All right, so once you have everything cut out the way that you would like it, that's going to look something like this. To get that just in place and to make sure that this box is going to line up, you can either measure this box out, which it's pretty easy when it's only 3 inches, and this center little locking mechanism is dead center, so 1.5 inches each way. Or you could put something just to build out the back, you know, 1/2 inch little piece of scrap ply, and then actually match it up to your box. And then you could use this spray adhesive. This is what I use for mine. It's just Loctite brand, multi-purpose. Make sure it says foam on the back. Shake it up real good. You spray it all over the back of this one. Then you would also spray it onto whatever you're adhering it to. Let it sit for about a minute before you attach the two. And then you could just close this box. And with that plywood sticking out, it will kind of stick it in place. With it stuck in place, you still have just a little time to move it around, throw a level on here, get it just the way that you want it, and hold some pressure. After that, just let it dry for however long it says on the can there, and you're good to go. I'm not doing mine yet because I still have it attached to my little display that I made for the actual build. But these screws are not on 16-inch centers. They're actually on the outside here. So if I put this on, then I'm going to end up covering up some of those screws to take it off. So I'll put this on whenever I'm ready to mount it, which that'll be pretty soon. But I've had a ton of people ask me about how to customize their foam. But until this second channel came along, I was a little hesitant to actually show my firearms for very long at a time. But now with this channel, I'm not too worried about it, and I can finally show you guys stuff like this. So again, this channel is going to be about everything. You're going to get me in kind of more of my natural setting. But again, this channel is going to be about pretty much everything outdoors, and this is part of it. We're going to be doing woodworking, of course, hunting, we're going to be fishing, we're going to be, you name it. Pretty much anything that pertains to the outdoors at all, we already do it, so we're going to share it with you guys. And since this is a new channel, we don't have very many subs, drop down into the comments on things that you would like to see. If you want to learn how to make something for the outdoors, drop into the comments. This is going to be kind of a everything goes type of channel, well, within reason. About outdoor stuff. Again, I'll be posting another video on how to customize for larger firearms. So we're talking about shotguns, ARs, things like that, that may have a lot more detail. So you have the depth of your optics, you have your charging handles, you have all of that different stuff. So those can get a little bit more complicated. And in that video, I'm actually going to be showing you some other things that you can do to kind of trick this box out. So like some Bluetooth accessories, you know, the automatic lights that come on whenever the door opens, you name it, I'm going to try to fit it into that build. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for coming over and checking out the new channel. Till next time, get outside and get some fresh air. See ya.